I'll pick up right from where I left off, which is at the very end of Author 2's story. Now, this does have an element of a win of some sort, in that Job has been pleading for some 36 chapters for this silent God to speak up and explain matters. So it's a win in the sense that this otherwise silent God actually does speak up. But it's also a loss for Job because God doesn't answer any of Job's questions on justice. And instead, God just says, in effect, who the fuck are you to question the creator of the universe, you little piece of shit? All right, that's a paraphrase, but that is the essence of God's reply. Because when you read God's whirlwind speech, his only topic is contrasting godly power with human puniness. Then the Lord answered Job from the whirlwind, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, if you know so much. Who decreed the boundaries of the seas when they gushed from the depths? Has the location of the gates of death been revealed to you? Can you hold back the stars? Can you shout to the clouds and make it rain? Can you make lightning appear and cause it to strike as you direct it? Where does the light come from, and how do you get there? Or tell me about the darkness. Where does it come from? Can you find its boundaries or go to its source? But of course you know all this, for you were born before it was all created, and you are so very experienced. Do you still want to argue with the Almighty? Are you as strong as God, and can you thunder with a voice like his? I owe no one anything. Everything under heaven is mine." So God gives this crushing speech, and it's filled with contempt and sarcasm, and Job acknowledges that he's beaten down when he says, "I lay my hand upon my mouth in silence. I have said too much already." So there's a clear element of loss there, but there's still some element of win. And not only because Job has provoked God into finally revealing himself, but also because when Job replies to God, Job includes some very well-written, subtle sarcasm of his own. And even a hint of Job's moral superiority over God when he says, "I was talking about things I knew nothing about and did not understand, things far too wonderful for me." So this is Author 2's contribution, a story written probably over 3,000 years ago, but the conflict is still relevant today. And there's some great dialogue, not only from Job, the protagonist, but also from all of Job's antagonists, Job's friends and God. And there's a great complex ending there too. Now, some may wonder why I say it's a great ending when God gives such a crushing speech, and it doesn't address Job's questions about justice, but instead, again, just contrasts godly power with human puniness. And my reason for saying it's a great ending is that if you really think that there must be some kind of master designer of the universe, and I think for the ancient time period in which that book was written, that was certainly a reasonable conclusion, then I think Author 2's depiction of this God is the one that best fits honest observation. In other words, this is a God who apparently has great power, but it's also a God that's indifferent to justice, indifferent to suffering, and doesn't communicate with us. And if this God were to communicate with us, it would just be to tell us that God is utterly incomprehensible, so don't even try. Anyway, I personally feel that the book of Job is the best example of a biblical story that is great literature when read from the secular perspective, because that frees us to recognize that different authors have different ideas about this character called God. But the story gets completely ruined if we read it from the religious perspective that insists it's one story straight from chapter 1 all the way through chapter 42, and that it can all be read within the framework of a loving God. Because from that perspective, the story just becomes nonsensical. All right, for anyone interested in more details, you can check out the links in the description box. There's a link to my video series on the book of Job, and there's a link to my book, Dialogue with a Christian Proselytizer. And I cover the subject in a bit more depth in my book, and that's during the course of the dialogue between the proselytizer and the Socratic skeptic, and in one of the mini essays I have toward the end of the book. All right, sorry for the shameless plug there, and thanks for watching.